Today, we have on an associate head coach who just recently completed his second season at UC Santa Barbara. Under his leadership, he guided UC Santa Barbara to a top 25 ranking this year. Previously, he spent 5 years at St. Mary's, where he turned the program completely around. He created an offensive strategy that led them to win their first ever WCC regular season title, WCC tournament championship, and first ever trip to the NCAA regional. He is known to develop players. In fact, he has developed and had several players selected to the MLB draft. And in 2016, 4 players were taken in the top 10 rounds. That should tell you a lot about his recruiting work and how hard he works to develop players. Prior to coaching at St. Mary's, he coached at Nevada, Chico State, UNLV, and Cal Lutheran. As a player, he played at York College in Nebraska, where he was an all-conference center fielder and led the Panthers to their first ever national ranking. He is known for his offensive philosophy, his diligent recruiting work, leaving no stone unturned in his search for players, and his reputation in the coaching world for his work ethic and professionalism. He is also known to have his players back, a trusted resource for his players, and being a great man. Welcome to the show, Associate Head Coach Matt Fonteno of UC Santa Barbara. Thank you
for having me, Jermaine.
Thank you. So let's start by talking about your season and your team, and talk a little bit about your team. What made you guys gel together? You guys were ranked top 25 in the nation. Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, it was an interesting group. I think if you saw it on paper, at least the team coming in, and I know the perception was out there that, hey, we had a great year last year, 45 wins and 10 guys drafted and all that stuff. And, there's probably a lot of people out there that thought it was going to be a rebuild process and all that stuff. Well, in college baseball, it's just not an option to even allow that word to even go into our mind when it comes to rebuilding. You're just constantly on the go, and whoever you happen to have on your roster in the fall and the spring, it's about you developing them the best you can. But, when it came into the year, I knew we had a good group of guys. We were really good on the mound, and we had some really good pieces offensively. We did have some guys come back from that Big West Championship team from 2019. Our middle infield was back. We had a couple other key pieces back as well. And, Rodney Boone anchoring the pitching staff, coming back as well. So it was a great group of guys. I think the success that we had, ultimately came down to them. And, they worked tremendously hard in the fall and into the spring leading up to the season. We had some really big moments, some really big outings on the mound, obviously some big hits offensively as well. But it was a good, tight-knit group, a lot of toughness, a lot of competitiveness, and we were able to come up with some really big wins.
Awesome. Congrats. You guys had a great year. Sorry, it's cut short, but do you guys have a motto or slogan? I remember when I was at UCLA, we had our motto of take responsibility, or and as I've talked with other coaches, everyone has their motto and slogan. So I wanted to talk about your slogan and what does that stand for, and why did you guys come up with that?
We try to keep ours extremely simple and straightforward. And the 2 words we always talk to our players about is commit and compete. The commit part of it is, with commit to anything and everything you're doing, whether it be, obviously UC Santa Barbara is a great education. So these guys are going to have challenges academically. And, at the end of it, of course, it means a great degree. But, so commit to being a great student, commit to doing everything you can to be as great of a student as you can possibly be. And then obviously on the flip side of it, you have all the athletic stuff when it comes to, obviously, your work ethic on the baseball field, what you're doing in the weight room, how good of a student of the game you are, commit to being a great teammate, commit to, doing anything and everything that you can to, obviously help the team win at the end of the day. But commit and compete are the 2 ones, for us. And then compete, obviously that word obviously gets thrown around a lot, but it's at the center of our program. I know me personally, we do competition Thursdays with our offensive guys. It's my favorite day of the week. I virtually just, it's the day where I do the least amount of coaching, but our guys probably have the most amount of success and development, just because those guys are going head to head and competing, and just, normal, typical batting practice situation stuff. And those guys, absolutely get after it. And it carries right into our game. Our pitching staff does a great job with the competition stuff as well. I know Coach Checketts and Coach Jones do a lot with competitive bullpens and whatnot as well. But commit and compete are our 2 go-tos, and our guys really really do a good job with it.
Do you guys have anything that you guys do as a total team? Like, I know that at UCLA we ran on the beach. We had like a beach day together. Something for team bonding. Do you guys have that?
Team bonding, yeah, I mean, obviously we're right on the beach. So it's easy to do some stuff down there. We'll do a day in the fall, early in the fall. We'll get everyone together and have a barbecue out there and just hang out. We'll have, our coaching staff. We all got kids and wives and all that stuff. So we'll all get out there with our players and, let everybody just hang out and enjoy the sun and, have some good grub and all that. But, we'll do some other things as well. Of course, we're around each other enough, on top of it, as being a college baseball player, you're almost around the guys too much. But, we'll take advantage of the beach too. We'll do some conditioning stuff down there and let the guys get after it and compete and get better from that standpoint. But, our guys are around each other so much. And, I think one thing we do in our program that really allows our guys to, get comfortable with one another. We give each guy a voice. We'll have team meetings and stuff like that. And we'll have our guys run the meetings. I think it's really important to have our guys have a voice. And anything from leadership stuff to team defensive stuff. I think it's important to have those guys with a sense of ownership of their piece of the team.
Awesome. That's really cool. Let's talk about who's an upcoming player that we should look out for on your team.
Just speaking of the guys that were freshman contributors this year, a couple guys. JD Callahan was a freshman right-handed pitcher for us. Had a couple of big starts for us on the year, a couple midweek starts. Started against your Bruins on a midweek game earlier in the year and had a really good outing. But he's done a really good job. He's developed really well. Position player wise, as a freshman, Nick Vogt, a kid from Northern California, had some big days for us. Actually had a walk-off hit at one point during the season. That's asking a lot out of a freshman, but both of those guys did good. And there's some other ones to name out there as well, but those two come to mind.
Awesome. Let's talk about your hitting philosophy now. When it comes to your team, what do you talk about? What's your big thing?
I think the biggest thing, it's a fine line between aggressiveness and competitiveness and all that stuff. And I want our guys to be aggressive. I want those guys to go up there with a complete sense of freedom that they can just absolutely go after it. Take the handcuffs off. They can go up there if they see a pitch and they whatever, regardless of the count, even if it's 3-0 count. I want them to feel like, hey man, I'm good enough. I'm talented enough. I can go get that thing. From there, that's the mentality I want our guys to have. I want them to be aggressive. I want them to be competitive. I want them to be tough. But at the same time, I think, just with any of us as coaches, it has to be a very individual approach to those guys. What I'm saying to one guy isn't always what I'll say to the other guy. It might be the same thought behind it on my part, but I have to explain it in a completely different way. And at the same time, I'm dealing with big guys, small guys, fast guys, slow guys, lefties, righties. So you have to figure out a way to make all those guys fit in the puzzle that you're trying to put together a really good offense.
I know that you take care of the hitting side of things, but what's the pitching philosophy when it comes to UC Santa Barbara?
Oh boy, that's it's a pretty in-depth pitching program that we have here. I think Coach Checketts, who's been the head coach here since 2012, and then Coach Jones, one of our other assistants, who is his right-hand guy. They both do a really good job with it. Everything's handled from top to bottom. I think it all starts with, their individual plans as far as their throwing program, their bullpen schedule and all that stuff. But, on top of that, just the pitch development, there's throwing programs, there's conditioning, there's all those things that go into it, which most everyone does. I think one of the things that we excel at, is some of the analytics stuff. We have TrackMan at the stadium. We use Rapsodo in all of our bullpens, high-speed cameras and all that stuff. And it's one thing to have that, and I think it's a whole nother thing to really know how to use it and how to use it to your advantage to develop guys. We have an analytics staff that does an unbelievable job with interacting with us as a coaching staff to help our players develop. But they do a really good job with that. Take for instance, a guy like Rodney Boone, who was the freshman pitcher of the year last year in the Big West Conference. Through the fall, was a good competitive lefty. Wasn't a guy, if you would have asked me December 1st of 2018, hey, is he going to be your Sunday starter, end up being a freshman pitcher of the year in the conference? I don't know if I would have said that, but he worked really hard. They really worked on developing his changeup, and it's paid dividends. I mean, the changeup is one of the best changeups I've ever seen, competing against or having on my own team. So, just to speak in terms of his individual development, but just the blend of the details and the interactions and the individual approach that our coaching staff does with our pitchers is second to none.
Awesome. So there would be many young players who watch this. What's your advice to those young players?
Do what you can do each and every day. I think a lot of guys get their head wrapped around with, well, I throw 80 miles an hour, but I have to throw 90. And if they don't throw 88 at the end of that particular day, they want to give up or they get discouraged. It's not about that. It's if you throw 80, then throw 80 miles an hour with unbelievable command. Okay. And then continue to work, develop your throwing program, get in the weight room, be in great, shape and all that stuff. And the velocity for a lot of guys, will come. I mean, I know there's mechanical adjustments and there's, arm path adjustments and all that stuff that go along with it. From the offensive side, I think the biggest thing is, really hone your approach at the plate. Because I think that's one thing that we really have control over and that can be really adjusted on the fly a lot of times, but really you understand your approach at the plate and get in the best, strongest shape you can possibly be.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference from when I played is I think the nutrition part of it. There's more, everyone's working and it's interesting when I'm talking to the coaches, that's one of the main things they're saying, hey, working out, nutrition, take care of your body. It's changing. Guys they're evolving and it's crazy. So the next question I have is when it comes to recruiting position players, what do you look for? Is there a specific checklist, criteria you go off? What would open your eyes?
I think right away you can tell, some athleticism traits when it comes to guys. And it's not always just the fastest runner. I mean, all these combines and showcases generally start with the guys running a 60, and there's guys that'll run a 6'5", a 6'4", a 6'6", and all that stuff. And that's the starting point, and it's a positive thing. Of course, we want to be able to have guys that can run a little bit, but there's also like baseball athleticism, how they move as an infielder, how they move as, behind the plate as a catcher, how they move in the outfield. And outfield's a little bit subjective sometimes because all they do is, get a couple fly balls and they'll throw it to third or home or something like that. But specific baseball, athleticism, then, you move on to arm strength stuff. I think arm strength for me is going to play a lot more in the infield and then behind the plate, not so much in the outfield because, I think that there's plenty of good outfielders out there that don't have great arms, but can really play the position and then, of course, hit. Pitching wise is it's a long list of things there. I think you can tell a lot just by how their arm works, their arm path and whatnot, and the quickness of their arm, loose, whippy, quick, however you want to term those specific qualities. But how all that works, and then you move on to their build and their command, and if they have a secondary pitch, and how close that secondary pitch is to becoming a really good pitch or something that they can really command from there. But those are a couple of things, and I think the intangibles on top of that, I think it's the biggest thing because I think us as evaluators, we could see 99% of that stuff right off the bat. I'm not saying I'm the only one that can see it by any means, but I think the homework starts with, you see a guy that checks a lot of those boxes for you, but now let's call his high school coach and see what kind of kid he is, what kind of student he is. Let's call, coaches that he's played against to see, hey man, what'd you think of this guy, number 28 for team X, Y, or Z? What'd you think of him? And a lot of times it'll come back and they'll say, oh man, we couldn't get that guy out, or, oh, we had no chance that guy. I mean, that guy's competes his rear end off, this, that, and the other. And, those are the things that really separate guys ultimately for me. What
about the way they carry themselves on the field? Does that allow them to stand out as well? Do they have, having good energy? Are those things that help?
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. And that's a big one for me as well. I'm a more energetic, naturally type of person, competitive type of person. I'm not a very quiet, unassuming, laid back type of a person when it comes to coaching. So I tend to gravitate a little bit more to guys that are outwardly competitive and energetic, not false hustle stuff, but, guys that are hustling on and off the field, guys that are, showing some toughness in the box. Maybe they end up wearing a pitch or something like that, and just they don't flinch. It doesn't bother them at all. Those guys are the kind of guys that I want to coach. Pitching wise, guys are going to give up hits. Guys are going to, maybe, lose a pitch and end up, throwing a wild pitch or something like that. It happens. It's how they respond to those situations. Do they, cover their face with their glove and turn away? Do they shrug their shoulders and show awful body language when they don't get a call, whether they're hitting or whether they're pitching? Even though an umpire, I tell this to my hitters all the time. I say, why would we ever react that way when we know it's going to happen? And hey, man, umpires, they're doing everything they can to be absolutely perfect, but at the end of the day, they're going to make mistakes. It's human. So why would we ever allow that to affect us? And we have to make sure and evaluate that in the process, whether we're watching a showcase or whether we're watching these guys out playing games and stuff. It's how they react to stuff like that. But I know that was a long and winded answer, but yeah, it's a lot of those things.
Now, because most of the parents here, they want to know the recruiting. So what
Sure.
age can a kid expect to be looked at or recruited by your program? And, do you take players' age in consideration? Only the class they are in? For example, like if, let's say, a kid is younger than his age group, does that matter? Does that affect his recruiting process?
His age, it doesn't, because it's still going to affect. I mean, I'll get a lot like, oh, he's supposed to be, he's supposed to be a sophomore, but he's a junior right now and all that stuff. Well, that doesn't really affect us in our sport. It could for Major League Baseball, because they look at their ages a lot more. But for me, he's still going to be a freshman. He's still going to be a sophomore at the same time. I'm not going to redshirt him and hold him back if he's talented enough because of his specific age or something like that. So that really doesn't come into play. I understand the argument for it. Like, well, hey, he's only 15, but he's a junior and, he should only be a sophomore. So look how much better he's going to ultimately get. I get and understand that, but we deal with our stuff is dictated off of what year they are in high school and in college. So it doesn't affect us too much. As far as, when can guys expect to be, recruited and whatnot? I mean, it's Division I baseball in the year 2020. It's guys are making decisions when they're freshmen in high school. Guys are making decisions before they even play a varsity baseball game. It's just the competitiveness and competitive nature of the recruiting game that's going on right now. And it is what it is. It's not the way it is for every guy. Guys are still making decisions when they're juniors and seniors and whatnot, but it's happening early.
Wow. That's crazy. I'm thinking about that. If I was a freshman thinking about going to college, or like that, that whole growth period from, 9th grade, 10th grade on, that's just insane to me. Now let's get into, are there stats that are considered D1? Do you look at exit velocities and those metrics? And do you take stock in those metrics?
Offensively, the metrics for me are a little bit tough because they can be misleading sometimes. As you know, as a hitter, there's one thing to be able to standing there in BP or hitting off a tee and just be able to really hit a ball hard. There's one thing, like, yeah, you want your guy to be able to do some damage from that standpoint. But then there's the whole other side of being able to put together a good at bat. There's pitch recognition skills. There's an approach. There's so many, your ability to adjust from a fastball to an off-speed pitch and all that stuff that go into being a good hitter. So just exit velocity to me, I don't pay too much attention to it. Yeah, it's great. That we have that information and it can be a piece of the puzzle for me, but to me, it's not like, oh, this guy's average exit velocity is 95 or 100, so we got to recruit this guy. No, that has not come up for me. On the flip side of it, though, from a pitching standpoint, there are numbers out there that do definitely get me interested in guys, and I think I've been fortunate, to be around Coach Checketts and these guys here at UCSB. I've learned a ton over the last couple of years just about some of those metrics that go into the pitching side of things that can really help you read and get an understanding of what a guy can ultimately be pitching wise. So there's some stuff on the pitching side that do intrigue me a little bit more.
And should a recruit contact you or wait to be recruited?
There's nothing wrong with them reaching out to us, email or whatnot. I think the key thing when it comes to them, I guess it kind of is like them recruiting us a little bit, but short, sweet. If there is some video involved with it, don't do a whole game. Half a dozen swings, some ground balls, a couple of at bats if you're a pitcher. In and out. Make sure to leave good references. Like I see a red flag for me with an email is a guy that lists all this stuff. I'm player X, Y, or Z, and I do this, that, and the other. But there's no references. There's no, hey, here's my high school coach, call him. Here's my travel ball coach, call him. Oh, yeah. And sometimes maybe that's just the kid not realizing it. But if I get an email from a kid at whatever high school, I'm going to call the high school coach and say, hey, what do you got on this guy?
That's great info. What opportunities are there for kids that don't have the means to attend camps and showcases? Is there, in your advice, like what do you think they should do?
I think that, take full advantage of high school baseball. I think a lot of times it's becoming a little bit of an afterthought because of the explosion with travel baseball these days. But high school baseball is great. It's a great resource. Like I just mentioned before with myself as a recruiter, utilizing the high school coach in the recruiting process. But yeah, I mean, take full advantage of it. Be the best guy on your high school baseball team. Be the hardest working guy on your baseball team. Be the best player in the league on your high school. And then your high school coach is going to want to help you out. Believe me, they're going to want to pick up the phone and call whoever they know or ask for help. They might just say, hey, I know this scout. He's a buddy of mine. We went to college together, but I don't really know many of the colleges in the area. Hey, you know anybody out there? I mean, I love this guy. He's our shortstop. He's the best player in our league. This guy should be playing Division I baseball. Help him out. So it starts with high school baseball for me. The reaching out, the emails, and all that stuff are great. Yeah, I get it. A lot of camps are expensive and all that stuff to make it tough for those guys. There's some showcases out there that aren't pricey. Area code tryouts and whatnot or not. That there's no charge to the kids or anything like that when it comes to attending that stuff, and we're all at those things. So they need a reference from one of the scouts to be able to attend it. But if they're good, if they do their thing on the high school baseball field, they in most cases should get taken care of.
Awesome, that's great advice. Using your network, I love it. How should a player go about getting exposure?
Much along the same lines, I think that, if you are a good student, let's say you're a 3.5 or above student, start to think about some schools that would be realistic options for you. And they don't all have to be Division I schools. They don't have to just be the top 20 schools in the country, from a baseball standpoint. Be realistic. Do I want to stay in state? Do I want to stay in my specific part of the state? Or do I want to get away from home? Pick those places out and start doing some research, and then really, have an individual approach to the exposure that you're putting out there. Hey, Coach Fonteno, this is so-and-so. I'm here. I have an interest in your school because I have this, that, and the other. I like your program. Here's a couple of at-bats from me from this season. Here are my stats. Here's my high school coach. Here's my travel ball coach information. I'd love to hear from you. Boom. That's the start of it right there. So I think that helps with the exposure stuff from there.
As far as exposure, what are the best ways? Email, video, show? Because I know you kind of tapped in there already, but just getting a little bit more info. Email, video, showcases, social media, camps, anything. Just what are the best ways to get exposure in your eyes?
Yeah, I think social media is a great one these days. I think it's easy to throw a little video on your Twitter or something like that and tag a coach or a specific program out there. I think that helps. Again, I think with doing that, I think a lot of it's condensed because there's only so much you can put on a tweet or an Instagram post or something like that. But that stuff there, again, individualized emails are good. Don't just put together a blanket email and send it out to 100 different coaches. 99% of the time, I don't even read them because I can tell right away. Dear coach, this is player X, Y, whatever. You're not sending this stuff to me. You're sending it to every coach in every conference west of Texas. So But stuff like that, I think could really help you out.
And I think you already pretty much talked about that. So you guys do look at email. So that's you already answered that. So what about, do you look for players with a 3.0 to 3.5 GPA versus a player with the 4.0 GPA? I get this question so much. Like, I guess the theory is that you're going to go after a player that's 3.0 to 3.5 rather than a player that's getting a 4.0 GPA. So talk about that. And does academics really matter?
Academics are, I mean, we all want to be good. I'm speaking in terms of our sport. We all want to be really good baseball players. There's no question about that. But when you talk about academics is probably the most important thing. And here's why. Because no matter who you are out there, how well you do academically is going to open more doors for you. If you are a 3.0 student, there's only so many schools in the country that can even get you into school. If you're a 3.5 student, the number of schools goes up. If you're a 4.0 student, the number of schools goes even higher. So you're just opening yourself up to more opportunity for other programs out there, more opportunity for possible scholarship stuff out there. So there's a lot of stuff out there when it comes to, being a better student. I think, depending on what school you're at, that, there's a lot of different ways to look at what GPA requirements you need, for different schools and things like that. But when you talk about academics, it's huge. Guys need to be good in the classroom. There's, guys need to work their rear end off. That's, I think one of the common terms in our sport is control the controllables. Well, you can control how well you listen in class. You can control the notes you're taking in class. You can control whether or not you're turning your work in on time. And a lot of times you're going to get good results just by simply doing that. I mean, yes, there's good test takers and there's guys that, remember and can recall things better than others. I get that part of it, but just do everything you can to be as great of a student as you can, because it'll open up a lot of doors.
Do you guys have any camps at UC Santa Barbara? And when you guys do have your camps, like, how do people get your attention? Do they send you an email beforehand, or do they just show up and, they just ball out? Is that like, how do they get your attention at a camp?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. There's a lot of times there's guys that we're aware of that are attending our camps, and we're excited to have there. And then there's guys too that will show up unannounced and really show well and get us excited and obviously raise our interest level in them. So it's a little bit of both. So a lot of times we'll get an email or emails prior to a camp. Hey, coach, just wanted to let you know I'm going to be there this weekend. This is who I am. This is where I play at. These are the numbers I put up. So on and so forth. But to be honest, it's a little bit of both. And yeah, we do our fair share of high school camps throughout the year. When we can. Obviously during the springtime we don't do any because of our season and the high school season. But in the summertime and the fall and whatnot, and we do our fair share of camps.
I think that camps kind of get a bad name, but I think you can separate yourself at a camp. That's why I brought it up, because I think that could get you on the map. And I'm sure you guys have several of them. So all you young players out there, if you'd like to go to UC Santa Barbara, look into going to one of their camps. So one of the things that also gets asked a lot is, do you recruit players by following them more in high school or through showcases / travel teams? Like, what is more of like what they should focus on? This is parents are always asking this question.
Yeah, again, for me, a lot of it's, depending on what time of the year it is. Sometimes the first time I'll see a guy is in some summer thing, whether it be a showcase or, some type of a travel ball tournament or something like that. But for me, it still goes back to high school baseball. I could be sitting at a place in July and see a guy play for the first time. I'm going to still use his high school coach as a resource. It's part of it is, we're going to utilize the travel ball program or whoever that player might be connected with, as a resource, but it still goes back to high school baseball, and the reason being, quite honestly, is, when they're in high school and participating in their high school baseball program, they're going to be in class during the day. They're going to be practicing or playing in the afternoon or at night. They're going to be competing to win a league title or a section title. All the same things apply to us in college. These guys are going to be, carrying a full academic load. They're going to be practicing every day. They're going to be traveling. They're going to be playing baseball games. We're going to compete for a Big West championship. We're going to compete to get back to Omaha and all those things. And so the guys that excel in that environment are the ones that are more often than not going to excel at the college level as well.
And speaking of the, showcases, which Pacific showcases are best to attend? I know everyone talks about the PBR and Perfect Game, but are there some others out there that you guys go attend?
Yeah, there are. And I got to probably tread lightly on this answer because I don't want to not include anybody or include the wrong people or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them out there, to be quite honest with you. I think it's a little bit subjective just because there are a lot of them. Some of them carry that hey, there's going to be some good players at that one just because of the history of it. I mentioned the area code tryout earlier. There's that one is a very tradition rich event just because of the area code games that play out at the end of the summer. But yeah, there's a lot of really good ones out there that are good ones to attend. I think, for just an advice standpoint to players out there, you don't have to attend a bunch of them. If you and a couple of your high school teammates are going to be are going to one, or some other baseball people that are going to go to one, just go ahead and you can attend that one and then just go play baseball for the rest of the summer. You don't need to attend them over and over. And the other thing is you got to make sure that there's college coaches actually attending them. There's some showcases out there that or during quiet periods and stuff like that we can't even see anything that's going on there. So it makes it a little hard to recruit when we're not even there, of course. But make sure that the right people are there to watch it.
How does this COVID-19 situation affect the recruiting process? What are you guys planning on doing about it when it comes to recruiting this year? I know that next year, the college baseball is going to be stacked. I mean, it's going to be crazy to see all the different numbers and all the players. So talk about, the COVID-19 situation, how it's going to affect your season and the recruiting process. I mean, you probably don't even know right now what you guys need to do, but just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So it's a couple things, I think initially when all this stuff hit, you're reminded, just because there were so unknowns when we got called essentially back to campus, and our season was at least at the time suspended, not over with. Though they canceled the College World Series right away. Will we be able to have a chance to come back and practice maybe at the end of the spring quarter, so these guys will be ready to go play summer baseball? We now know that of course is not going to happen. So I think it starts with our players in our program, the student athletes in our program, and their well-being, to making sure that they're doing well academically, that they're of course staying safe and healthy and all those things. If summer ball happens for those guys, which that's a wait and see for a lot of the summer ball leagues out there. We'll see. It's a great development opportunity for those guys, of course, to get a bunch of at-bats or innings on the mound and whatnot, especially because of our season got shortened up. As far as, working through the rest of all the stuff, there's a lot of unknowns. Major League Baseball hasn't even decided on a date for their draft. They haven't decided on the number of rounds for their draft. A lot of that is going to affect virtually every Division I program in the country, some more than others. But there's just a lot of unknowns. There's plenty of programs out there that have guys that they knew were going to be a 6th to 10th rounder for all intents and purposes, and they might end up getting every single one of those guys back into their program. So to your point, yeah, college baseball is going to be better. But, those guys coming back and then a group of guys coming in, how is that going to affect all these Division I programs out there? There's just a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. Let's flip it over to the scholarship side, because a lot of people have questions about that. When it comes to scholarships, do players actually get a full ride? Is it year to year, or is it every year differently, or is it a mixture between academic, financial aid, and baseball? And what would a player most likely receive?
Yeah, it really, varies, for myself, and I've spent time at a public institution and private schools and whatnot. So it varies a lot from place to place. Some places, they have some academic merit money available, depending, if your GPA is this or your test scores are that, if you're in a particular major. And or a certain rank in your class graduation or something like that. There's some academic money that could be out there, but that's a school to school thing. And usually that's the private school that has that. Private schools are probably going to carry a price tag of $50,000 to $70,000 a year as it is anyway. So that's going to be an expensive bill for you. But, as far as scholarships goes, we're allowed to have 11.7 scholarship. That's an NCAA rule. That's what we operate under. That's our salary cap. That's the way I like to put it. So we're allowed to have 11.7 on roster. Do full rides happen? Yeah, they do. Of course, it's got to be the right type of guy and the right type of person and player and all that stuff. He's got to be a game changer. But yeah, they do happen. They're out there, and every program's not the same. They don't get some programs out there that don't offer full rides and stuff, and that's their own thing. It is what it is. But I know myself. I've had guys that were on full rides, and those guys have been fortunately really good players for the program I was in. So. But yeah, that happens year to year. For us, and again, renewals happen July 1st at the end of the fiscal year. Scholarship renewals happen. That's normal operating procedure for Division I baseball. I think there are maybe conferences out there that I think do 4-year deals as far as when they're signing and all that stuff. But I think that's more of a conference thing. But yeah, they're renewed on a year-to-year basis. And when you're dealing with 11.7 scholarships as your salary cap, there's a lot of moving parts in there, and there's plenty of Division I baseball coaches out there that know what I'm talking about. Just trying to make all the pieces fit, making sure that you're under that 11.7 cap. So there's a lot of different moving pieces in there.
So I just only have a few more questions for
Sure.
you. I'll let you go home,
Yeah.
let you do what you need to do. As far as social media, how does that affect the recruiting process? What's your advice about social media?
Speaking in turn, like from the high school athlete, from their side, yeah, it's good. I tend to check, their profiles and whatnot, just to see kind of what they're into, to see what they're posting and whatnot. Some guys don't even have them, which is perfectly fine. You don't have to have one, but some guys are into it more than others. I think using it to your advantage. If you are a guy that likes to be on Instagram or Twitter or something like that, putting out some, the right content like that helps you in the recruiting process. For sure, you don't want to put anything out there that's questionable. I think retweeting or tweeting things that are, have bad language and just bad content and stuff like that speaks to the type of person you are, what you would allow. So none of us want those types of guys in our program. But I think using it to your advantage best you can is really good. Be positive, promote, your high school program, your buddies, your high school buddies that are trying to get exposure as well and whatnot. I think those are all good.
So if they develop the following on social media, does that help them as far as like getting seen? Would it, in your eyes, would you take that as like, okay, like that guy got a little following, so, and he's promoting baseball. Let's say, he's swinging in the baseball world. He has a following. Does that help him?
Yeah, sure. I mean, because, I think if he's putting some stuff out, and I think for me, from a recruiting standpoint, it's got to start with, well, if he's putting videos out there and, he's, it's good at bats, it's good, pitching performances or whatever. Well, then me as an evaluator, I see that and I go, okay, well, this guy can swing it, or he can defend, or he can really pitch, or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's going to help him out in the recruiting process. I think him just being a baseball social media brand or something like that, I don't know if that is going to help him out. But I think that if there's stuff in there for us to evaluate, then I think that that's going to really help his case for us. Now, that doesn't mean that other levels, other schools out there wouldn't value that, but that's just from me and what the level I'm at.
Interesting. Last question for you. How much does a parent play in part of the recruiting process, and can they negatively affect the recruiting process, and how should they act at a showcase? Because, there's some situations where I hear where parents are, being more than they should or doing more than they should. So talk to me about their process in the recruiting or their play and part in the recruiting process.
Yeah, they're right at the center of it, to be quite honest with you. I think in two ways. When us recruiting their kid. And I think from us, in the general evaluation process, I think I'll start with just, when we're out and about, watching games or tournaments or showcases and whatnot. And there's moments where you see parents yelling at the umpire and maybe even yelling at their own coach and whatnot. Like, I want to know who that their son is. I want to know that, because if that's happening there, it's going to happen at UCSB, and I don't want any piece of that. And that's just the reality of it. It might sound like, gosh, how can you do that, coach? But it's reality. Like, I want a good kid, a good baseball player who's tough, plays hard, is talented, all those things. But all those other things, the distractions that are going to be a pain in our butt once they do arrive on campus, that just takes away from their development and the development of the rest of the guys on the team. And I don't want to bring a guy like that into our program. I don't want to have Coach Checketts have to deal with that stuff. So yeah, for sure, we all pay attention to it. Any coach out there that says they don't, they're lying. We're all aware. We spend 12 hours at a field. There's things that we pay attention to that people have no idea about, and what parents are doing, aren't doing. It's definitely one of them. But on the flip side, in the recruiting process, yeah, I want to be able to have good conversations with mom or dad or aunt or uncle, whatever it may be, about, our place. And I want their feedback. I want their questions. Like, well, coach, we're thinking about sending our kid to your place for 3 or 4 years. How are you going to take care of him? What kind of things are in place to make sure that he stays on track academically, that he is doing, everything he can to develop as a baseball player? Well, this is all the stuff that we have. So it's really twofold. Yeah, we pay attention to that stuff out there, and it's part of it. But at the same time, they're right in the center of it when it comes to the recruiting process as well, once it goes down.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you jumping on and giving so much valuable information, not only just for your school, but in general when it comes to, attending showcases, recruiting, how to get attention. So I want to thank you for taking that time. And is there anything else you want to talk about, or can they follow you at UC Santa Barbara, or is there anything that they can reach out to just say hi or whatever, or thank you?
Yeah, our Twitter is UCSB_baseball, and my Twitter is at mfonteno4. So you can reach out to me either way there. Just know that I can't respond or anything like that if you're an underclass recruit. But I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, Jermaine. It's been awesome. Anything you can do to help the kids out there is great.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.